Well, let me just, and actually, Senator Seliger asked one of the questions about that 40% that you say would be going back into the general fund. We're taking that money out of the school foundation program that's for the public schools. You say so it would go into the general fund, and you were saying that now we'll have money in the general fund to deal with teacher pay raises and other needs that we have in the educational system. I mean, what guarantees do we have under this legislation that 40% of the money that would go into the general fund would in fact be allocated for the educational needs of the public school system?
None.
There's no guarantee, exactly.
No, because my bill, this bill, the children's bill, actually addresses the 60% instead of 100% that we're already funding the child. We're only funding 60%. It is up to the legislature to decide what to do with those dollars.
Well,
if that comes out as a dedication of the funds, that is not part of this bill, but I'm definitely willing to look at how we can use those dollars to improve some of the things we talked about. But we do need to look for ways we can increase our general revenue to.
Here's the thing. I understand what you're saying. You're saying we would have an additional amount of money in the general revenue fund for the needs in public education. But, in this session, we have plenty of money, as we know, not only in the general revenue fund, but also in the rainy day fund. I don't see anybody making an effort to prioritize giving teachers raises, as you were saying, to giving more money for programs that we know are not getting adequately funded, like bilingual education, dual language programs, special needs programs, a full day pre-kindergarten. The rationale is that we just can't afford it. My concern is that while you're saying that 40% would go back into the general fund to meet the educational needs of the public school system, I think you just answered it, I guess, by saying that there's no guarantee that that money would be used for those purposes. And so let me just then follow up also on the accountability, so that people can be clear about what we're talking about here. And in your talking points, you do indicate that private schools would not be subject to regulations.
Yes, sir.
Very clearly. So that means that schools that receive vouchers would not be required to comply with the accountability evaluations that we currently insist on for public school students?
Well, let me ask, the answer to that would be a reflection of we have an accountability system now, accreditation, and yet we, in public school system, yet we have, those schools have lost their accreditation and they're still open. So what better accountability accreditation do we have than to have a parent make that choice and move their child?
I know, but we're talking about public dollars, as Senator Seliger said, moving out of the school foundation fund to these vouchers that are going into the private schools, and yet private schools would have no accountability evaluations. They wouldn't be subject to the open records laws. They wouldn't have to comply with the statewide academic standards. All of these issues that we have spent a lot of time with regard to public education talking about and insisting on, and somehow your bill would say, but private schools don't have to comply with any of that.
Yes, the private schools do not have to comply with any governmental mandates or regulations, but I think that your question will be answered better by the person we have that can talk to you about or speak to the group regarding a study that was done that looked at private schools and the outcome. And in the end, aren't we really looking for, we're asking for excellent performance, good outcomes, and we have an accountability system. It's bureaucratic. Well, it's failing. And
look, I understand. I'll close with this. Let me ask you this, because I really am curious to see how you expect to get this bill through this session, given that on the question of accountability, the leadership over on the House side, both the chairman of the Education Committee, and I believe even Speaker Strauss and others have raised questions about vouchers not having any accountability. And so if that's the case, and if they stick to their guns on that, how are we going to get this legislation through in the House?
Yes, sir. My first focus is the opportunity that we have to help the children on this committee. I will tackle one hill at a time.
All right.
But I do believe sometimes the idea of a seed, a good idea, takes time to come to fruition. I think when people really understand more about it, they'll make the right choice. And I think there's never, it's never too early to make the right choice. It's always, but there is problems when it's when you're too
So
late.
you would not be interested in including language that provides for accountability on these programs?
No, sir, because I believe
All right.
the best accountability is the parent.
I understand.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Chairman.